Hey guys, you might have already heard about LeetCode, where you can find actually a ton of coding exercises, coding interview questions, and basically a lot of exercises and problems to solve with programming. But especially as a beginner, if you are learning a new programming language or you're just starting to learn how to code, it could be quite hard to solve these problems. And in this case, I would rather use CodingBat at the beginning because it really helped me to understand the basics of programming, how the logic behind the whole thing is working. And that's the reason why I would like to go through a couple of these CodingBat problems with you now. And just that you know, we are going to use the programming language Java, but on CodingBat you also have the opportunity to use Python. So we can just jump right into it, straight to the first warm-up session. First problem is sleepIn. Okay, the parameter weekday is true if it is a weekday, and the parameter vacation is true if we are on vacation. We sleep in if it is not a weekday or we are on a vacation. Return true if you sleep in. So if you haven't understood this or if you do not have any experience with programming, you should know that we are now talking about Boolean variables, as you can also see here. Boolean is a variable type that can only hold the values true or false. Well, actually it can also be null as every variable type, but important to know, it cannot hold numbers, characters, whole words, or something like that. It is only true or false. So, we sleep in if it is not a weekday. We can easily solve this problem with an if condition. We just say if it is not a weekday. That's the first thing we need to check. So if the weekday variable is false, so is not true. It is important to know that here you need to use two of these signs, because one sign means assigning a value to a variable. So if you would for example say a is 3, that means our variable a has the value 3. But if you say a is 3 like this means we compare a with 3, we check if a is equal to 3, and actually it returns true if it is true, if it is equal to 3, and false if it is not. So now that you know this, you understand why we wrote here if weekday is false with two of these signs. And the second thing that we need to check is, are we on a vacation, so on a holiday? And we can check this with vacation is true. Now we would like to combine these two conditions, and not in any way, but with an or condition. You can combine two things in the most cases with an or an and. The syntax for or in Java is two of these vertical lines, and the syntax for and is two of these and signs. It is important to know that you cannot use only one and sign or only one vertical line, because that will not be accepted by the compiler of Java. So you need to use both of them. Now we are going to write or, and we know that we need to return true if you sleep in. This condition says that we sleep in, so in this case we are going to return true. And in other cases, so else, we are just going to return false. Oops. Let's see if it is working. Yes, perfect. So there's also another way to solve this, and you should know about Boolean variables that you don't necessarily need to write this one. You can just simply say vacation, and since it is a Boolean variable, this means that vacation is true. So vacation simply will be compared with true, and this means exactly the same as what we wrote. But now here we have false, so we cannot use the same thing as here. We need to add something, and at the beginning of the word of the variable we are just going to use this exclamation mark just like that, and this is a negation, so this just simply means not. So if weekday is not true, that means if weekday is false, it means the same. Let's go and see if it is working. Yes, it is all correct. So with that being said, this exercise is, I believe, just done. So let's move on to the next exercise. In this one, we have two monkeys, A and B, and the parameters A smile and B smile indicate if each is smiling. We are in trouble if they are both smiling or if neither of them is smiling. Return true if we are in trouble. So when are we in trouble? If both of them is smiling. We already know, we can say if smile, we don't need to write is true. And as you've already learned, according to the last exercise, if B is smiling. And now we can just put this condition into nice little brackets here. Yes, and we can combine it with the other expression with an or. So or the second thing is true. What is? If neither of them is smiling. So if not A smile and not B smile. In this case, we are in trouble and we need to return true. And in other cases, so else, we want to return false. Alright, yep, it automatically deleted a bracket. Exactly. That was it. So we can just move on to the next exercise. Given two int values, you may not know what int is. It means integer, and it is just a number, so it's also a variable type like booleans that we've worked with in the last two exercises. But integers are numbers, and they are whole numbers. So 5, 6, 7, they are all integers, but 5.8, there is no more integer. That is, for example, a float. But I believe we are going to learn about floats and other variable types later on, so let's just stick to integers now, which are whole numbers. So we have two integers, A and B, and we need to return their sum. Unless the two values are the same, then return double the sum. So we can check them. Are they equal? And as already been said, we are comparing them with two of these signs, because one means assigning a value to a variable and two means comparing, and now we want to compare them. So what do we do if they are equal? So if the values are the same, then we need to return double the sum. That means in this case we are going to return 2 times the sum of A and B. And in other cases, so in every case that they are not equal, we just want to return their sum. Let's see. Exactly. All correct. Let's move on to the next exercise. In this problem, again, we are given an integer value and we need to return the absolute difference between n, our integer, and 21, except if the absolute difference, so if n is over 21, then we need to return double the absolute difference. So the absolute difference basically means that we take n minus 21 if n is bigger than 21, and we take 21 minus n when 21 is the bigger one. And this exercise is perfect for this because we need to check if n is over 21. So we can simply just take this condition. We say if n is over 21, then we return double the absolute difference. So double, in this case, we know that we want to say n minus 21, because otherwise it would be just a difference and no absolute difference. And in other cases, we are going to say return 21 minus n, because in other cases, n is always smaller or equal to 21. So we will always get a positive value, and that's exactly what we want by an absolute difference. And exactly as you can see, it's all correct. Let's move on to the next exercise. So we have a loud talking parrot. The hour parameter is the current hour time in the range from 0 to 23. We are in trouble if the parrot is talking and the hour is before 7 or after 20. Return true if we are in trouble. So as you can see now, CodingBat tries to combine these two types of exercises. So now we are at the same time working with booleans and working with integers. But we can handle this problem pretty easily, I believe. So we are in trouble if the parrot is talking. That means if talking, that was it. And the hour, so and the hour is before, so before 7, so it's smaller than 7, or hour is bigger than 20, so after 20. Exactly. In this case, we are going to return true, and as we are going to return false. Let's see. Perfect. So, next one. Given two integers a and b, return true if one of them is 10 or if their sum is 10. So again, just combining what we've already learned. If one of them is 10, that means if a is 10 or b is 10, or if their sum is 10. So if a plus b is 10. Exactly. In this case, we want to return true, yes. And otherwise, we want to return false. Perfect. We already got our second, or I don't know how much star we got, but at least we got some of them. In this exercise, we are again given an integer n, and we need to return if this integer is within 10 of 100 or 200. And here we already got a note that we can use math.apps to compute the absolute value of a number. And you can now think that, okay, but we could have used this one in the previous exercises to compute the absolute value of the difference, you know. And yes, of course, we could have used it, but I believe it was better that you now a little bit understood that you can also do this with if functions, and you don't necessarily need to know every command, so every framework in Java or in Python or in any programming language. If you are in trouble, you can just hard code it yourself. So what do we need to do? We need to check if this n is within 10 of 100 or 200. That means we take the absolute value of n minus 100 and compare it with 10. If it is within 10, so if it is less or equal 10. And now we take the other one, we combine it with an or, so with the other condition. And this is going to be exactly the same, but with 200, of course. And again, if it is within 10. Exactly. And in this case, we are going to return true. In other cases, we are going to return false. Let's see. All okay, it is all correct. So I believe at this point we are going to finish with this video. Today you've actually learned quite a lot if you are pretty new to programming. You've learned about booleans, about integers, and about basic if conditions, how to use them, how to make these decisions with them. And in the next video we are going to go on with these warm-up exercises. And until then, please leave a feedback, leave some comments. I'm curious to hear your opinion about the videos, and smash that like button.